I cannot believe it has genuinely gotten to this point as we have multiple updates on the Marco Rossi situation that make the Minnesota Wild and Rossi situation look like a middle school relationship, as Michael Russo revealed a lot on the last DFO rundown. We got to dive into the exact quotes, how far apart the Minnesota Wild and Rossi are on an extension, and the big implications this has on the rest of the off season. All of that, plus we got to dive into an NHL.com list of top goalies under 25, and there's a certain Wild goaltender that we feel did not get the respect he deserves. All that coming up on this episode of Wild Digest. But hey, just a quick reminder, guys, to hit that free subscribe button. We have Wild content coming all off season long, even in the dog days of summer. We are here with your latest news. And Kirk, let's just start by getting into this list here. Wolf Knight among top 10 goalies under 25 entering this season. Askarov is poised for a breakout year. Jacob Fowler, who has yet to play a game. Augustine, yeah, you know, they feature high on this list. And that's where I sort of have a bit of a gripe, because Jesper Wallstedt has fallen to 9th, Kirk, the guy that was once the number 1 goalie prospect in the league, and I understand he had a very bad season. Like, there's no two ways around it. 879 save percentage, 843 in 2 games at the NHL level. It's not good enough, and we know that. It's a down year. I expect him to bounce back, but to be below some other guys that have also not really seen any NHL action, like, look, Fowler and Augustine look to be great, and a lot of these other guys like Jack Greaves, Dustin Wolf, they've proven themselves in the NHL, but I can't help but feel that number 9 still feels a bit low for a guy with Jesper Wallstedt's pedigree. Or do you think it is just because of this past season?
I'm going to say because of this season, as well as the amount of games that the rest of this list has played. Of course, you have some of these rookies who are yet to be in the position of getting to an NHL game. We've seen that now with what Jesper Wallstedt was a couple years ago. He was high on this list. You get him into the NHL, he's genuinely going to drop down a bit with some of these younger guys coming in. A lot more goalies getting some NHL time. I think it's just a combination of everything, really. Jesper Wallstedt, as I said a couple videos ago, really just didn't like his season. He felt down earlier on, and he was thinking that it wasn't a good situation for him. He acknowledged that, and he's ready to go in next season. I think we're going to see him bounce back up for sure next year, of course, from 9, and whether or not, of course, he will get as many games as we think, he's certainly going to get more, especially now with Marc Andre Fleury retiring, Filip Gustavsson going into a contract year here, and it's going to be a very interesting look between these two goalies. So the Minnesota Wild are going to have to decide which route they want to take, and I think Jesper Wallstedt is acknowledging that. He knows that now is his time, and he's got to get ready to go, and I'm expecting to see a much better year this year, regardless of where this list is, because, of course, this is just a list. This does not have any direct correlation with how good or bad he's been in this year, but it is going to be a big jump for next year for him, and I'm expecting to see him up with some of the names like a Dustin Wolf here, who has been a very pleasant surprise for a lot of Flames fans here in the NHL.
Yeah, for sure. And like, not to knock the goalies ahead of him, and again, not to prop up Wallstedt where maybe we shouldn't push him higher than where he is, but I just feel like maybe this is not necessarily disrespectful, maybe that we said at the start, but it's more like if there's one guy on this list that's about to prove everyone wrong, it's Jesper Wallstedt, because like you said, this dude, and even like this article says, he has already played 5 pro seasons at age 22 and showed in the first 4, 2 in the AHL, 2 in Sweden's top league, that he's capable of better. So I'm expecting a big time bounce back. Leave your thoughts on, like, do you think it's disrespectful to have him number 9? Do you think it's fair based on last season? Do you think he's going to defy those expectations by some people after this bad season? We'd love to hear from you, but Kirk, we got to dive into the meat and potatoes of this video right now. And look, I know, another Marco Rossi video. I don't even care, because this is the newest updates we're getting are driving me mad, and like, I don't even know what to think about it at this point, Kirk. No, sorry, Jesper, we're done with you, because Michael Russo said, Marco Rossi, this is from the DFO rundown, right now they're in total shutdown mode. I don't think they've had a conversation in 3 or 4 weeks. They were, I think, playing a game of chicken to see if he'd sign an offer sheet. And you know, there is another part here where he said, I think he's a little worried about signing some sort of bridge deal and then getting buried and not able to prove himself fully and then hit that home run contract next time. I mean, Kirk, like you said before the show, like I said in the intro, completely stealing the quote that you had, because I'm going to do that because it was fun. It feels like a middle school relationship. It feels like you texted the girl you like and she just left you unread. What even is this at this point? I mean, honestly, the fact they haven't talked in 3 or 4 weeks is starting to get genuinely concerning. I don't like the wording of this at all.
Yeah, you know, going into this, obviously, we expected Marco Rossi and the Minnesota Wild to be a little bit further apart. We kind of expected now to where we are currently to be a bit closer. I wouldn't say I expected it to be done just yet, but the way that it's playing out and the way that they are kind of going about this is just not the right way at all. Obviously, you want to have constant communication. That's what you want to see with your top prospect. You want to have him ready to go for next season. He's one of 2 players to play 82 games last season. So when you're seeing him say that, you know, not hitting that home run contract, afraid of being buried, that just genuinely makes no sense from the Marco Rossi camp. Now, I'm not blaming this on Marco Rossi, nor am I blaming it on the Wild. I'm just kind of saying that the way they're going about it is completely wrong. I understand where he's kind of coming from, but the fact that you're thinking you're going to get buried after the season you had, one of two players to play 82 games, being on the second line all year. Yes, you didn't have the greatest playoffs. You're on the fourth line. The Wild didn't really give you a chance, but you're a rookie. You're so young that we have so much experience on this team. You're not going to be automatically thrown in the second line. I think he certainly could have played there in the playoffs, as he showed that he can. But going into this now and being on the projected second line, of course, Danila Yurov is projected to play center as well, but they're not going to play Yurov over Rossi. It just is such a bad back and forth between the two sides that it's making this so frustrating. For us here, I know you guys watching, the frustration is there. Like, we just want to see something get close, something done. Like, I just want to hear some sort of positive news on this side of things to at least, get going in the right direction. Because right now, it certainly seems that these two are just way too stubborn to be, at a professional level.
I just want to hear like Minnesota Wild are willing to come up to 5.1 or something. Like again, like you said, like I am okay with the Boldy logic, like come in at less than Boldy, sure. But I'm also going to play a bit of devil's advocate, right? From the Rossi's camp, I don't, not even as that I necessarily disagree with you that like, I don't think he'll get buried. At the same time, like you have to imagine if you're Rossi and you're Rossi's agents, more importantly, as these are the guys that are trying to negotiate this deal, you're going to the Minnesota Wild saying, my guy had 60 points for you in the regular season, and you threw him on the fourth line, and he still somehow produced with Yakov Trenin and Justin Brazeau down there. Like, why did you throw him down there and then didn't promote him after? Like, is this a sign of something else to come? And, if you're Rossi's agents trying to negotiate money, you're like, we don't want a bridge deal because we are afraid that you guys are going to do this. But again, like you said, Kirk, on that note there, that if that is one of the main gripes and that is public, that to me speaks a bit more to the relationship between not only Marco Rossi and the Wild, Marco Rossi's agents in the Wild, but just the Wild teammates. Because then it's like, I don't want to sign a specific contract because I don't trust that the coaching staff here will actually play me where I believe I deserve to be playing here. And then you get into this weird, because you hear that in the NCAA, like Isaac Howard, I don't want to play for this team. So I don't even know what to think anymore. I just can't believe it's gotten to this point. Like, do you think this at all has any effect on the Minnesota Wild locker room? Because that's where I'm getting at this point in my mind. Like, honestly, at the end of the day, I'd say we're probably overreacting more than Rossi is. I bet Rossi's pretty comfy. He's like, you know what? I'm going to get my money either way. Something's going to happen. I want more. They don't want it. And like Joe Smith said, like recently, a few weeks ago, if he doesn't sign an offer sheet to force the Wild's hand, I think it could be a long one, right up until training camp. And Rossi's probably okay with that. We're probably overreacting more than he is. But at the same time, Kirk, I can't help but feel like with the way that these quotes are structured, with the way that this seems to be going, like you do wonder, like, how this is going to affect other contract negotiations. Not necessarily Kaprizov, but look, we have other guys coming up in the future, like a Zeev Boyum, like a Jesper Wallstedt. What are these going to look like? And that's kind of where my mind starts to go.
Yeah, Marco Rossi seems to be the only player that really had this issue with the Minnesota Wild. I feel like when we've seen Matt Boldy get his contract, that was pretty quick. And then you go to Brock Faber, his contract was pretty quick. And of course, even that little bridge deal they had with Jesper Wallstedt to get him where he is now, that was still done pretty quick. And one thing that really interests me, Josh, is what you mentioned as well, is that what effect this has on the locker room. I'm honestly very surprised we haven't asked or seen any questions asked to any of our players about what their thoughts are on this. Normally you always see that in some sort of deal because it certainly doesn't seem like Marco Rossi is that Isaac Howard type of guy. Like,
No.
I'm not playing here. I feel like he's very comfortable playing here. He wants to play here, but he's in no rush. I think an agent, he's obviously doing his job, trying to get the most money for his client, which because it also goes into his pocket, but also the Wild are trying to do the best on their end. And at the end of the day, I think it will get done, whether or not it will be as late as possible, whether or not it's going to be in training camp. At some point, something is going to be done for sure. But, right now, the way that's playing out is just, it's not nice to see from our standpoint, but as you said, I think that Marco Rossi is very comfortable. I think the Wild are a little bit more panicked, but, at the end of the day, it's a business. It's going to get done at some point, whether it's with the Wild or not, whether it's an offer sheet, they got to force the Wild's hand. Bill Guerin has said that, we're going to match any offer sheet that's there, and that kind of confuses me because why aren't you at least offering that contract if someone's going to give him upwards of $7 million? So, I think it's a little cat and mouse game, but at some point, I think both sides are going to get a bit tired and get something done here, or at least that's what I hope.
Yeah, same here. And again, Rossi has to sign an offer sheet no matter where it is, and he's going to have to want to play there. So maybe they know that there's not many places he'd rather play. Like, then it's this leverage thing. I think there's a lot that is going unsaid in these negotiations, and I just wish I could be a fly on the wall in some of these negotiations to hear what's going on, because I think it's really interesting, but we'd love to hear your your guys' thoughts on all this down below. I know there's a lot of frustration, but do you think this makes it more or less likely stuff's going to happen? The fact they haven't talked in 3 or 4 weeks is crazy, but hey, listen, we'll just have to wait and see, because that'll do it for this episode of Wild Digest. If you enjoy, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for tuning in all off season long. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Kirk Day. We'll catch you in the next one.